Hi, Roberto. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arun. Pleasure is mine and looking forward to our conversation.
Right. Um, Roberto, you are the managing director for startups for Microsoft across the MEA region. Give us a business overview of the size and scale of the startup ecosystem within the region.
Yeah, look, this is a great time to talk about how the ecosystem here is evolving.
Yeah.
The ecosystem is rapidly growing, right? So in terms of number of deals, in terms of the amount of investment that we have seen putting into the region here, right? So overall, the MENA investment ecosystem is hitting about $2 billion of investment in the last year. Despite COVID, despite the situation, we have seen some industries, some verticals growing in terms of the amount of investment or the number of deals versus other industries that probably have been suffering more. But the amount of investment is still probably far from ideal, but definitely it's a significant growth compared to previous years. In the last 2, 3, 4 years, we have seen a steadily growth in terms of the amount of investment that are putting into this ecosystem. In terms of the number of deals, you've seen a lot of deals have been happening in industries like retail, healthcare, education, and more we see also investments happening in industries like agriculture, sustainability in a broad sense, which could include water, carbon, agri-tech, desert tech in this part of the world, and in general, energy. We have also seen a number of activities related to hospitality, tourism, and travel. Namely, Emirates in the region is very active with this Intelac hub, this association with Accenture, Microsoft, Dubai Tourism to invest into startups, whether it's early stage through the incubator, later stage with accelerator, or even ideation stage with the camp that they are organizing for very early stage ideas. We are also partnering with Etihad, by the way, on an accelerator where we launched it a few months back to drive more open innovation between corporates and startups. So in a nutshell, I would say the ecosystem is definitely growing. You see the maturity of startups also increasing. We have been very much polarized in the ecosystem towards a consumer business sort of startups, most of which ended up being a sort of a copycat, a Me Too, sort of another delivery service, right? But in the last 12 months, we have seen signals of an increasing number of B2B startups or startups that are trying to face problems that corporates are trying to solve for as well. So there is a natural connection there that might just evolve with time here in the region. And we have also seen more development towards deep tech, towards more industries that are still a little bit legacy or not disrupted, so where a lot of innovation still needs to happen. So think about energy again, think about manufacturing, think about healthcare. So we see a number of entrepreneurs, founders, startups that are trying to tackle solutions in those spaces, in those industries. And we see the ecosystem definitely growing there. Finally, I would say the other component, there are other two components I'd like to mention when we look at the ecosystem. One is definitely government. Most of the initiatives here are definitely government-led. So definitely entrepreneurship is on the top of the agenda for government looking at the region on prioritizing support for entrepreneurs, for startups, the ease of doing business, for example. And a lot of things have been done and recently rolled out that make life easier for entrepreneurs. Like think about the green visa, the golden visa. Setting up a business here is way easier than it used to be a few years back, and it will be more and more, right? So also the cost of setting up is being significantly reduced. The amount of support available for startups starting, whether it's incubator, accelerator, that they can find in this ecosystem, and the access from this, the UAE in general, as an hub to the rest of the region is just getting better and better, right? So government is playing a critical role there to make this easier and easier and make sure that there is continuous investment and funding available for startups. And this is one key aspect. The other aspect is about talent. We always complain a little bit in this region that there is not enough talent. But I believe that that's partially true. I mean, yeah, if you compare with more mature ecosystem numbers, I mean, we are dwarfed by other mature ecosystems, right? Startup ecosystem, think about India, think about China, US, Europe, right? So, but at the same time, it's not that talent is not here. It's that just we need to increase the number of opportunities for talent here to be involved, right? So to have a chance to start their ideas, to start their projects, to build their own venture and so on and so forth. So the role we can play there as a tech player is definitely about skilling, empowering youth, talent with knowledge about understanding technology, understanding business models, how to go to market, how to do partnerships. And then our role is also connecting the dots across different other ecosystems, players, to come together and build this support network, right? So this ecosystem. But again, the ecosystem is getting better and better. There is a lot of support coming from different angles. We need to connect more the dots across different players. But the investment size is sizable now, is something that starts being important, and it keeps growing. The number of deals, the size of deals, the industries that we see startups developing are more varied. There is more diversity. And there is also now more B2B startups being created and trying to tap into specific industries, which shows intentionality, shows focus. So we see in ingredients and signals of an healthy ecosystem being developed. And we are very happy about that, because we see that there is an opportunity here, given the commitment and the vision from the leadership of the state of the UAE, thinking long term as well, how to position the economy here to really invest more into entrepreneurship.
Yep. Microsoft for Startups was started in around 2018, roughly. Where does its model diverge from typical accelerator programs among its peers?
Yeah, this is a great question. Let me answer this question by connecting why Microsoft for Startups exists with Microsoft mission. So Microsoft mission is one of empowering every single person and organization in the world to achieve more. This is what Satya hard-coded, in a way, if you want, in the culture and in the mission of the company, right? So, and when Satya moved to being the CEO of Microsoft, he started changing a number of things. For sure, he started changing the culture of the organization, which is a big thing if you consider the size of such a company. But he also started changing the approach towards partnerships, for example. Think about how Microsoft is now open to partner with companies that only a few years back were competitors, right? So the approach is completely different also to software development, open source, and how to work and enable more partners and customers to build on Microsoft. We like to be an underlying layer on top of which companies can build, on top of which partners can develop their service models, but not try to be a walled garden or a closed environment where then people cannot move, right? So this is one thing. So how this connect to Microsoft for Startups? So the concept behind Microsoft for Startups was trying to go beyond the approach of just giving out credits to startups, which is what most tech players are doing today, right? So you give out some credits, startups are in need of credits to build their technology on a cloud infrastructure environment, and that's the way where tech players are hoping to hook companies early on and take them as customers in later down the line. There's nothing wrong with that, but I believe that there is no value in that, because credits are an incentive. And if you are building a good tech startup, you should factor in the cost of technology in your P&L, right? So credits will expire at some point, and at some point you will need to discover, oh, I need to pay for this, right? So, but I need to have also good technology at the right time to scale my product, because maybe my ambition is to grow bigger if I am a startup, if I'm a founder, right? So the concept was, okay, let's try to go beyond that. Let's look within ourselves what assets we have available that we can extend to startups in a meaningful way to help them and to provide value to them, to add value to them. So the conversation starts being from just hooking startups early on to get by credits is what additional value we can give to startups. And then we started searching within ourselves, and we said, look, where is that Microsoft is really strong? Microsoft is strong at different things, but definitely the amount of customers and enterprises, large corporates that Microsoft is working with globally is unparalleled, right? So we have a unique opportunity there to do something that is also relevant for startups, because we work with so many corporates with whom we have a good relationship. And sometimes, you know, when we talk about this buzzword of digital transformation, what is really about? The way I see it is digital transformation is now a window open where a company like Microsoft working with a corporate, they have an opportunity to work together and discuss how can we partner together, how are you looking at your business model, how are you looking at your innovation agenda, your innovation roadmap, and how we can partner together, right? So this is one thing. The corporates we're working with, but also the partners we work with. Microsoft, across all the tech companies, has the widest, largest partner network, consolidated along many years, right? So we have tiers of partners, different services, different value propositions. So it's a really wide, deep network of partners that we work with, and we primarily work through partners. So we said, okay, we have corporates and we have partners. Still, how can we work with startups? So this is exactly what Microsoft for Startups does. On one hand, we have corporates, and because of this digital transformation innovation agenda open, we are exposed to a number of use cases and challenges that they're facing. And the question that they have is not, please sell us one license more of Outlook or Dynamics, is how can you help us? How can you be a partner with us in the long term? Because we are facing disruption. We are looking at innovation. We are looking at technology, but we don't know how to. So can you help us? So we said, on one hand, we have these corporates where we can help them with innovation. On the other hand, we have the startups. So we used to give them credits, but the credits, we said, expire. So what else can we do? What if we are able to build this ecosystem where we give innovation, we bring innovation to corporates, not necessarily through Microsoft products, but through startups. By doing that, we can give more business to startups because we can give them access to markets, access to corporates. We can connect them with corporates that are really trying to solve for specific use cases where we know this startup, hey, wait a second, they already built something that can help this corporate, or they have the capability to build something because they have a kick-ass team, a founding team or whatever, right? So this is the grand vision. This is what Microsoft for Startups ultimately is trying to do, is democratizing this access to innovation and technology by building a connected ecosystem of corporates on one hand, startups on the other end, bringing innovation to corporates, bringing more business to startups, and having more players that are developing on Microsoft technology, right? So we indirectly will get a benefit as well as a broader organization.
Here we are at Dubai Airshow. Talk to us about the startups within the region that you've seen, potentially very promising ones within the space and the aircraft and aerospace industry that sort of really caught your attention.
Yeah, look, there are a number of startups. As I told you, we are partnering very closely with Intellect Hub, with Emirates Dubai Tourism, and Accenture. We are partnering and working also with Etihad, for example, so two of the largest carriers here in the UAE, right? And also then in hospitality with a number of hotel groups and chains and so on and so forth. So we are in a privileged position to observe a number of startups that have been developing solutions, specifically on travel tech, right? So let me first answer telling you what the main trends that we've seen in terms of development. Definitely, we have seen a trend that is about trying to predict the user behavior when it comes to travel. And that could be the user behavior itself, or it could be the pricing models for, now we have a lot of signals and technology with big data analytics that can be used to surface some of these insights and action that users can take. So we've seen a lot of development in that. We've seen a lot of development also in redefining, or let me say reimagining the user experience when traveling. For example, think about connected devices, IoTs. Think about when you have your luggage and all of these devices can now be connected somehow. So how can you leverage that? Or wearables, right? Or contactless payments now with the COVID, right? So we have more rules to abide with or to respect. And of course, there have been a lot of changes and disruption in the way people are looking into traveling, right? So there have been a number of solutions that have been developed in terms of the security, safety of people, reducing time, waiting times for people while at airports or before or after being at the airport. So not just making the airport the bottleneck of the travel experience, and also helping people rediscover new places, right? So now with technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, or simply video, right? Sometimes we are working with these startups, which their name is Hello to the World, Say Hello to the World. They are a travel tech startup, and they are basically, they built a sort of an aggregator where you can find locations where you want to go and visit, but it's all done through videos. So you might argue, oh, this is like a Booking.com. Yes, it is, but Booking.com is not doing videos, and also for a reason, right? So, and the cost that a Booking.com would need to incur to go and develop something like that, given the current massive systems that they have, is preventing them to do that quickly. So this startup has built something very scalable with a growing user base very quickly, and they just do videos. So you can really immerse yourself in the experience and you know, the cost per acquisition is really cheaper than other solutions that try to do the similar thing, and the go-to-market has been much faster. So they came probably at the right time where people were looking for more inspiration as well when looking for travelers. But this is a whole other category, is redefining, you know, reimagining how people that are visiting new cities, new places, want to discover those places, starting before the time they need to book a travel and continuing after, you know, they land on that city and they want to discover the city. We also have a number of startups that are working along the lines of accessibility and sustainability. Probably you heard about a startup called The Concept. Is a startup from the UAE. They basically developed an RFID, so a way to track the weight of these trays with the food, right? So to, first of all, to give airlines data about how much food is wasted and consumed or not consumed during the travels, right? And then optimize as well the warehouses, the logistics around the food supply chain, around the catering as well for traveling, which, if you think about it, the amount of weight that can be reduced, aggregated, is reducing the amount of carbon footprint that airlines are consuming like every day. Right? So this is also something very much linked to sustainability, which is really great. But also accessibility startups, right? So how can people of determination be assisted when they travel, right? So we have startups that are building solutions to make their life easier at each step of the travel experience, whether it's in the booking of their tickets, when assisting them while they are, you know, in the airport, or while they are on the plane, and so on and so forth. So we have seen a number of developments there across all of these different areas when it comes to travel tech. And I believe we still need to see a lot of development by using the technology that is already available today. Again, IoT is very much used, machine learning, artificial intelligence. We have wearable technologies as well that have very much to do with the travel experience. Virtual reality, augmented reality as well. So all of these technologies are already there, consumable. And we see a lot of startups that are leveraging this technology to build new solutions to either redefine the user travel experience, either to predict or optimize the efficiency of the process for the users, but also for the operators, right? So how different hotels chains can be connected to optimize their supply chain. At a time where traveling or supply chain logistics might be affected, like we saw with the COVID or the pandemic, and there might be different situations in the future, right? So how to allow a flexible allocation of goods and of the travel supply chain across different hotels, for example. We see some solutions there that are really smart to enable hotels to do that. And finally, also, you know, predictions, right? So how you can leverage all of this data to predict user behavior, to predict the cost, how much it will cost at the time where the information is out there, available all the time. But for example, it's becoming overwhelming, right? So this is where people get stuck. So the attention that you have online is probably a few seconds. You have so many information out there available, still it's so difficult to make decisions, right? So we have startups that are trying to reimagine that experience. For example, there is a startup that is reimagining applying stickers on top of aggregators to make it easier for people to compare the real cost that they can get when they book end-to-end their travel, right? So data is there, technology is there. It's just you know, having this wave of entrepreneurs that really rethink, reimagine the experience and build these solutions and go out there and validate this with customers and so on and so forth. But we see a lot of developments and a number of great startups in this region, and the commitment in this region to be a regional or global hub for tourism, travel, hospitality, airlines. So definitely the access that startup can have when they tap into these accelerators like Intellect Hub with Etihad, you know, the access that they can have to deploy and test their solutions, and the feedback they can get, and the validation of their product and customers that they can get, is unparalleled anywhere else in the world, right? So I believe we should do even more to leverage this access and to invite even more startups to make them aware that this is really a global hub that they need to consider if they want to develop a travel tech startup. And situations like the Dubai Airshow or Vista, these conferences are a great window, right, for entrepreneurs, startups, for the operators, for airlines to showcase and to connect and to find solutions together.
Right. Saudi Arabia, the single largest economy in the region, a country with a very young population, 70% population, 30 and under, a country that is now aggressively pursuing a policy of diversification away from oil. Of course, many interesting startups coming up, a lot of accelerators, a lot of government backing. What are some of the key startup trends that you are seeing, exciting startup trends coming out of Saudi Arabia?
There are many trends coming out of Saudi Arabia today. Many things happening. As you say, it's the largest market in the GCC, right? For access. If you talk to startups here, most of the startups here they develop, prototype, and test here, but then the next step is looking into Saudi, right? So it makes total sense. And then now you see even more development happening directly into Saudi. So definitely there is a lot of activities happening there. What I see is definitely one is the openness that the government is looking into entrepreneurship, right? So again, it's similar to the UAE. Government is involved. It's more a necessity. There is capital pulled into the ecosystem to diversify economy from oil and push entrepreneurs to build more. But for example, Minister of Communication Information Technology, MCIT, with the NDPT, there is a new initiative within that entity of the government where they are building incentives that are tied to the success of the startups building from Saudi, right? So it's not just about numbers of startups or number of visas issued, right? So it feels to me that they're trying to learn from some mistakes done in the past across the broader regional ecosystem here, and are reimagining some of the incentives that can make a real difference to attract startups to build also in Saudi, right? So this is great to see. This is one trend that I see that is happening, definitely happening in Saudi. The other one is talent, so investment in talent, right? So Saudi has a larger population than the UAE, for example, and has a wider network of universities and entities, educational institutions that are looking into building talent. And I've seen many activities there in terms of academies, courses built around technology, around entrepreneurship, around leadership, that ultimately contribute to have abundance of young people that get themselves into the dancing floor. So they just don't talk about it, but they try to make things happen, right? So you see this is starting. You see that there has been investment into talent and education. And finally, I would say Saudi is interesting because there is this concept, I mean, there is more of a society there and there is more access to markets, right? So you see that the times starts being mature for startups to get those access, right? So there are large corporations, think about the Aramco of the world, that are investing a lot into entrepreneurship. There are foundations like MISC and others. There are education institutions like KAUST. And there are federations like the Cybersecurity Federation. I recently visited them. I was totally blown up and impressed about the speed of things, the speed of at which they're doing things, right? So they have a great initiative around skilling with TAHEC Academy, which is awesome. And they are building a number of things to empower next generation of entrepreneurs in Saudi to build in Saudi. So there are many things happening. So I would say the ecosystem, it's live. There are still some steps probably the ecosystem need to go through in terms I would say more on investment, because we have seen some valuations being not necessarily increased, and this can have an impact mid-long term on the investment landscape in the region and in the market. But it's great to see that there is appetite, there is development, there is ideas, there is programs that are being rolled out, there is private and public sector coming together to build these programs together. So the access is definitely there. And again, I see it in Saudi, I see it as a window of opportunity again for entrepreneurs and founders to have a look at what it is today, and tap probably into such an ecosystem at the early stage to get the full benefits and contribute as well to develop that ecosystem.
Right. And to another country within the region, Israel, known as the startup nation of the world, really, one of the most mature startup ecosystems in the world. That's a country that has now started to engage with the UAE in the last couple of months, since last year. What are some of the lessons that this region's startups can learn from a country like Israel?
Yeah, this is awesome question. I had the chance to work a long time also covering Israel, so I'm familiar with that ecosystem and the way it works. So to your question, I believe number one is understanding what it takes to build an innovation culture, right? So build that environment that you need to have in a country to bring and connect the dots across different constituents, different ecosystems that you need to have together to enable innovation. And Israel started doing that a long time ago, and they did it very well, right? So it starts with education. They have abundance of engineers. But more importantly, they know because they do a proper planning. So they are very much intentional in how they look at innovation. So they are very focused as well. So they decide, hey, these are the 2, 3, 4 industries or verticals that we want to invest into, that we want to be known for, right? And then they do the capacity planning. Hey, do we have enough engineers to sustain the growth or to build solutions in these industries, given we want to be the #1 in the world? Yes, no. If no, well, we need to start now building bootcamps and capabilities of X thousands engineers we will need in 3 years' time. They do that, right? So I think one learning that the ecosystem here can take from there is this capacity of, probably is a military thing, given the state of the Israel, right? But it's also this capacity of looking ahead of time and planning and building the resources that you need to sustain that innovation, right? So this is one thing. The other thing is a real understanding of technology. Because once you are faced with startups or partners that they really did it, right? So, and they get it, and they understand it, and they know it, it's difficult to cheat it. I mean, either you play, at the same level, or it's evident that you're not at that level yet, and this is good. This is good because we need to elevate, and we need to raise the bar, both on the ambition, so to have more startups from this region that think export, and Israel is a great example of how they build their corridors. Think about the US and how many Israeli startups, they build their governance in the US and they scale from there immediately. So this is one thing. The other thing is real understanding and sophistication of technology, because if the problems that the UAE wants to face are the ones that the leadership is sharing about sustainability, about food, about healthcare, about many things where UAE wants to be known for, right? So then it cannot only be a consumer business side of things. It cannot only be a copycat or localization of existing business models. It also has to be pure innovation that could be incremental or breakthrough, but most likely incremental, but with real capabilities, engineers that understand technology, raise the bar on how products are developed today, and probably start exporting technology from here, building corridors and partnerships with other countries, other regions, other geographies in the world.
Right. I'm down to my last 2 questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. When a startup founder comes up to you and presents Roberto with an idea, what is that X factor that you're looking for when they come to you?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, and once you will never end up answering, right? Because it's always discovery and learning from the founders. But in general, I would say, first of all, how much the founder or the founding team are in love with a specific problem. Sometimes you see founders have an idea, they're still just scratching the surface, and they believe that they're already there, right? So, and sometimes they're just proposing something that creates the symptoms of that problem, but they're not trying to go deeper into the problem. So one thing that we are looking into is this founder really falling in love with the problem, go to the root of what this problem really is, and working out solutions that can scale and potentially impact the life of millions of people. So, because this makes the difference, because this is where we see technology playing at its best, technology that can scale to as many people as possible. The other thing is, does this founder have the grit or the capabilities, the skills, the character to make hard decisions, hard calls? Because unfortunately, the only way to be successful as a founder is to make right decisions that come from experience, which come from making wrong decisions, right? So, but it's how you go through one wrong decision to the other, and sometimes good decisions to get you to the success, right? So, does this founder, does she or he has the ability to make hard calls? Sometimes you have to, as a founder, and not all of the people can do that, right? So, and finally also, is this person is able to inspire other people to follow, right? You need to bring people on board with you. You need to be able to tell the story. You need to be able to inspire whoever is around you with what you're trying to do, right? So, you know, the ability of listening to customers, so to understand if you are building something that people are going to use, making hard calls, but also inspiring other people and falling in love with the problem is what we look into. Of course, then we have the hard core of it, right? Which is more, is there an addressable market? Is there technology that is relevant for us to help? Is there a potential partnership we can help them to grow and go to market? But this is more hardcore. If you ask me, a founder comes to me and what makes the difference, what makes a decision, those are the elements that we would be looking into.
Right, and my very last question to you, your broad predictions for the state of the startup ecosystem within the region in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Look, this is the hard question, right? We don't have a crystal ball. It's always easy to make mistakes or not to be relevant. But I would say we are living at a very good time here because you see there is energy around. And that's what builds the optimism. Now, this doesn't have to turn into a slippery slope, because reality distortion can go down to be exaggeration and end up not being good, right? So we need to be realistic. But at the same time, we need to leverage the optimism that the government and the institutions here are building for entrepreneurs and founders to believe that this is a place where they can do it. And we need to leave.
Okay.
Please leave the building immediately. Just closing, I guess. No, look, so we need to go with that flow and that energy. So the prediction is that it's a wish and a prediction. So I think if the government here and the institution will do an effort to be more focused, instead of trying to do everything at the same time, but be focused, pick up the battles that they want to win, and fight and win, right? So which industries we want to build the UAE as a regional or global hub? Why? What are the assets that we have here? We don't have to be stressed of building another Silicon Valley. It will never happen. This will be the UAE regional hub, right? So there are some assets here that are unique to this region. You mentioned before demographics of the region, not only UAE, but the broader region, right? So digitization that started now. We have seen many way around here leapfrogging technology, like think about micropayments in Africa, right? Or things like that. So there are signals indicators that there will be definitely huge development, that the thing that is being built here is here to stay, that there is the focus on the right things. What I wish is if there is going to be even more focus on those industries verticals where we want to be recognized for, and keep doing the same job on making it easier for founder and for youth to tap into entrepreneurship. I believe that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, we will see a higher number of startups, a much more quality of startups, and even more investments available to a level comparable to other more mature ecosystems, right? So the ingredients are there, the commitment, the vision, and the leadership is there. It's a matter more of execution now. And that's where usually things can get stuck or can get, can take the right direction. So in terms of execution, my advice and my wish is, I wish to see more focus. And coming with that, I wish to see more planning on what is really required, the resources needed to get the job done, not what job needs to be done. That's clear. Once you focus on a specific industry and once you build the resources to do that. So it's an execution thing, and if steps will be moved in that direction, I'm confident we will see more startups, more quality startups, and more investments in the region.
Roberto Croci, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure was mine. Thank you so much.